So HSP, what is HSP? HSP stands for highly sensitive person, but we often use the term HSP as an adjective here in polar theory, as or sort of like a thing that you have. And when used in that context, it sort of has a simple meaning of being nervous or anxious, both disproportionate to what is being involved and disproportionate compared to other humans in the populace. Okay, where does this come from? Well, having V polar, as mentioned in that section, makes for being extremely sensitive to pretty much all environmental stimulus, most of which do not seem to be conducive usually to the simulator, the synonymy, or the spirit forms of the Nai'xyy. So this dumps constant, massive amounts of nervous energy into the system of the Nai'xyy. The outside is innately de-energizing and threatening. So whenever the Nai'xyy is out in the open, when they are in public, when they have to meet people, new people, but really it can just be any time they have to be seen. A lot of Nai'xyy will know this feeling of actually having their body just tense, just knowing that there's anyone else in the house, knowing there's anyone else on the entire, huge soccer field that could see you, even though it's like 100 yards away. Just that awareness hits you. What else? The nerves, however, do have a strong correlation with Nai'xyy and talent, both in that the stronger the HSP innately, the more they're able to do, and usually the more they're able to accept their HSP-ness and use it, the more powerful they are. Because it needs to be channeled and stylized, the nervous energy, because it won't go anywhere. And if you attempt to suppress it, as mentioned in sections like the Foes In, it's exhausting. It will take most of your energy and you'll end up being innervated and depressed all the time. So when channeled, it actually allows for Nai'xyy to do phenomenal things, and the HSP, the nervous energy, can look like just an incredible, like, magnetic demonstration, usually in a outward way. But it takes training and self-awareness to know what that energy is and what to do with it when it comes on you and what causes it to come on you, which is just a lifelong study for being a Nai'xyy. What else? There are more things that contribute to this, because the Nai'xyy, for example, also have V polar. But there's some things about being a Nai'xyy that really kind of accentuate this. One is actually having the Xi, and not just Xi, but Xi tandem, that unique position it has for Nai'xyy, which allows Nai'xyy to have the most talent innately for mojo reading. The price they pay for this is a hyper-awareness of what others are thinking and feeling and aware of. So it's a relentless bombarding of information when people are around an Nai'xyy. So not only is there a general environmental anxiety, there is a social anxiety. In fact, a lot of Nai'xyy think they're not Xi because of how anxious social interactions make them. But it's actually because they're just painfully aware of what people are thinking and feeling, and the discrepancies between what they say and how they actually feel or think about people, all those kinds of things. It's like a riot of like extra conversations. So you're kind of almost hearing these hidden conversations that people are having through their pod power signals and the language. So it hits you really hard, just the strength of the signal, and also the discrepancy and disconnect between the different conversations, as one thing they speak is different than what their face is showing, what their spirits are thinking or feeling. So that's very, very painful. And Nai'xyy, with their Nai, have things they need to do, and therefore they're often eccentric, and there's this fear of actually their eccentricities, their need to follow their way, is going to bother people, because they're very aware that people have opinions about them. Nai'xyy are very, very conscious of that. Now, some Nai'xyy get pissed off of this and take a fuck you attitude. Others can be very, very shape-shifting in order to try to get a conducive response. However, either way, there is just an intense awareness. Also, because Nai'xyy are Nai'xyy, and they are therefore very, very aware of the way things can be pulled as far as strings and manipulations that can be done to people, mind jobbing, they tend to be very aware of other people's agendas and sort of, even if other people aren't aware of it, Nai'xyy can feel that there's a lot of machinations trying to get them to do something. This can actually come from two things in the objective discernment corridor or quadrant, which is the Xi of humans. A lot of Nai'xyy actually have a low opinion of humans actually because they can read them so well. That's actually a state that says a lot about memes, but also the dissatisfaction of Nai'xyy. But it's not supposed to be that pronounced, but there is that pronounced feeling often of, I don't like humans. I know how humans think. I know what humans are like, and I don't really think much of it. This is a very common Nai'xyy sentiment. Next, the Xi. Not only does the Nai'xyy have Xi different than, say, Nai'xyy, who also has HSP issues, but there's also the Xi. The Xi, although it can help calm, it also contributes to an uber perfectionism. That concept of perfection, although Xi can keep one chilly as far as don't make mistakes, so outwardly you might not move at all. People might see a total placid surface. But the Xi can actually cause a great deal of anxiety for a Nai'xyy, particularly as an offside power, because the Nai wants getting done what it wants getting done. The Xi has code of conduct and connectedness it wants to accomplish, and the Xi basically lets you know if you did it or not. And that's what it constantly does for a Nai'xyy, is it lets you know if your vision is getting where it should get and if you conducted yourself in a heroic enough fashion. 49, 50. Yeah, it's very 49, 51 about how well your visionary heroic progress is going. And that's ironically why a lot of Nai'xyy go with the don't move. The Xi is so crushing in what the Xi says would be a perfect rendering of the Nai'xyy vision that you almost don't want to try, because it's just so nerve-wracking and you're so unsure if you'll be able to meet it in a satisfactory way. And if you're not, your Xi will just really, really get on you that you didn't come anywhere close to perfection. Finally, is Nai. Not finally, I'm just going to different orders here, but the Nai adds another part to the HSP, is besides V innately being sort of painful and annoying and impingeful, is Nai is also in its own right as the source power predisposed towards paranoia and conspiracy as part of actually being a power that spends most of its time making speculations and predictions. As a power that spends most of the time doing that, you make all kinds of guesses. A lot of these guesses can be fairly off, particularly if there is a not perfect or great or peak pathway relationship with Xi and V, which is very standard. So if the Xi and V are off, not only will they have their own problems innately, they also cause problems for the Nai, because the Nai will start giving you all kinds of paranoia messages. So you're in the cafe, the loud noises are making the V go off. The Xi makes you feel like you're surrounded by zombies who aren't really people. It makes you anxious. Then your Xi is saying a hero would actually turn them into non-zombies and do this and this and this, and why aren't you doing that? Geez. 4951, failure, epic failure, Mr. Hero wannabe. And then your Nai is like, I think some people can see you thinking these thoughts. They can tell you're thinking that you don't, whatever. And so like, get out of here. So there's a lot of reasons to have the HSP nervous energy. But used properly, it is uber heroic. Combining again the Nai and the V is innately painful to the Nai'xyy, because we live in a sort of dream state in a way. But if we release into the Nai and then we're jarred by the environment, it's even more painful. The metaphor being of getting kicked while you're having sex. So the more into the Nai you get when the environment jars you, it's extra painful. So not only is there the latent pain of it doing it to you, there is the fear of when's it going to happen. So a lot of times Nai'xyy will actually be drifting and they'll self-jar. They'll jar themselves out of it because they have such reflexive fear of being prematurely pulled out of Nai by V. So there's actually like this always, like they'll go into their Nai for a few seconds and they'll come out and like look around the environment like furtively and then go back in. So it can be difficult to feel like I can ever drift anywhere except for someplace extremely private.